Hey, welcome to Real Raw Faith. I'm Justin. I'm here with Pastor Jim as usual. Here at Real Raw Faith, we talk about things that are in the news or things that we find on social media or YouTube and kind of discuss those and dive into them a little bit deeper and have conversation about how these subjects make us feel, different knowledge that we may have behind it that we can discuss. So I want to tell you, and hopefully you're not too nervous about this. I'm kind of pulling this out, but I was going through YouTube this weekend and saw this pastor that I respect very much was talking about the weight of words and what we say gets into cussing and words that we use, and then also references to OMG and how those words may be a little different forms of cussing. Are you familiar with this by any chance?
Actually, it sounds a little familiar. What was the name of that pastor?
It was Pastor Jim Snyder.
That might have been me. Yeah, I remember talking about that.
So I thought it would be good for us to talk about this a little bit more because oddly enough, I had a conversation with a couple just this weekend about cussing.
Yeah.
And words and kind of the meanings behind words. Can you give a little synopsis of what you were referring to in your sermon for listeners?
Yeah, sure. So I was talking about just the power of words, that we speak. The gist of the gist of the message was don't waste your words because sometimes our words can, if they come out wrong, they can actually ruin our witness. We're supposed to be trying to help people understand who Jesus is, and but sometimes we can get so, I don't know. Sometimes our words can ruin our ability to influence their life in any way because we use language that's derogatory or negative, or and not that you never ever say anything negative, but I think that's in that respect. I just kind of went off a sidebar and talked about why Christians shouldn't use OMG, oh my God. Why should we not say oh my God? Or you hit your thumb with a hammer and you say Jesus Christ. Well, why should we not do that? And then I kind of just shared how the real reason that we shouldn't do that is that what we do when we say oh my God or Jesus Christ just flippantly like that, what we're doing is taking the sacred name of God and we're making it common. And actually not only just making it common, but we're using it as a curse, as something that is, you could exchange that word, Jesus Christ, for any cuss word, but instead we're going to choose the name of the Son of God, the one who died on the cross, rose from the dead to give you life, but we're going to use it to express our frustration with the thing that happened or something like that. And that is, in effect, making light of God. Yeah.
Okay. And I think most Christians seem to agree that using, oh my God, Jesus Christ, things like that in moments of pain or frustration are not good. And we are asked not to do that. And that is of a sinful nature.
But you said we're asked not to do that.
Well, it's in the Bible. It is stated that we don't use the Lord's name in vain.
Yeah, right.
So asked maybe is not the right word. We're told not to do that.
Okay.
So maybe I softened it a little bit. But then there's a lot of other words in the English language that we deem as curse words as well.
Yep.
So, and they kind of all get lumped in together.
True.
So, we there's the S word, there's the F word, a-hole, whatever it may be, that those are words that we kind of take out because they feel dirty or they're inappropriate. Can you you had mentioned the OMG or JC as being, and I even have a hard time using those words just in conversation.
Right.
Because they're words that I've tried to take out of my vernacular, my spoken language, because they're not appropriate. What is should there be a differences between those words?
Yeah, that's a great question because some of those words are just vulgar. Some of them are just, they're just inappropriate in that you're just you're mad about something, and so you say a word that's just kind of vulgar. And is that the same as taking the living God's name in vain? No, it's not. It's a very different thing. So if you say Jesus Christ, should you get it in as much trouble as if you say the F word at school or something like that? I don't know if you get in trouble for either of those words at school anymore, but in my mind, they're not the same. At the same time, though, they can give an impression. If you're using that language, it gives people an impression of who you are, and that kind of thing. And so you could, in essence, lose your witness because you're always cussing all the time. But that's not the same thing as taking the Lord's name in vain. Those are different in my mind. One is cussing, and the other one is just using vulgar language.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I say I hit myself and I don't say JC, but I say cheese and rice.
Cheese and rice.
Like the filler words are just as bad as using the actual word itself, right? Or do you think it softens it by, if I just say OMG instead of oh my God? Because you'll see OMG all over social media.
Right.
Is it the same?
Yeah, okay. That's a great question. OMG, definitely the implication is, oh my God. That's what the letters stand for. Cheese and rice sounds a lot like Jesus Christ, but it's cheese and rice. So it's not the same. It's almost like, yeah, yes and no. Like saying, oh, geez, I was thinking about, does saying, oh, geez, is that the same as saying Jesus? Is it, yeah, but no. What are your thoughts?
Well, a lot of times, especially, I have a tendency to use words that I probably shouldn't use. And a lot of it, to me, I feel like a lot of it has to do with the heart behind it.
Yeah, okay. Good.
And that kind of goes into what you were teaching as well. Like, be careful of what words you use and how that harms the person. The F word's probably a great example. It's a harsh word. It rolls off your tongue harsh. But if I say something that is absolutely fucking awesome, something that you did, and I am building you up, hey, that was a great hit, hey, was that, yeah, I probably shouldn't do that. But it's a lot more different than I walk up to someone and you're an effing idiot. Because behind it, there's a lot of, I'm angry, it's hateful. I might as well say, I think you're dumb, I hate you. And those words stick.
Yeah.
And words that hate we use quite regularly. I hate this kind of pizza. I hate this or hate that. And it becomes very normal, but that word can be just as dangerous.
Sure.
As words that we deem as curse words.
Yeah.
So when I look at this, I'm really trying to figure out the heart behind it. Now, I don't think that I am separating out using God's name in vain from just words that society or that our culture has deemed inappropriate. There's a lot of colorful language in the Bible. And I was reading an article on this written by someone where even humans translated the Bible. We talked about that before, and they're going from ancient languages, Greek, Hebrew, Aramaic, and sometimes those translations were softened anyways because they're harsh words.
Yeah.
Referred to as a filthy rag, I think, is one of the references that was used. Well, the actual term for that was relating to a menstrual rag, but they softened that. Or different, one I found, and I'll have to look it back up here real quick, was shaggle is a word that I think Paul used, excuse me if I'm incorrect on the person, that we translate into lie with, but it was actually taking more of a nature of rape or forcing yourself upon.
Sexually forcing yourself.
So we even find ourselves softening that, but those languages were in the original manuscripts.
Yeah.
So I don't know what.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess I'm thinking more along the lines of when I speak, it's important to me that I don't become a distraction with my language. That I might say a word that just throws everybody off, and they're like, "Oh, did you hear what he just said?" or something like that. So it makes me think of a story I won't tell. But I probably should, because now I've introduced it.
Yeah, now I want to hear it. Inquiring minds want to know.
You're right. So it's one thing. I think one thing is misusing the name of the Lord is just something we should avoid. That's just something that we should take out of our language, because it's really inappropriate for a Christ follower to use the name of the Lord as a common curse. But it's common too, and so to find that as, okay, you know what, I need to weed that out of my vocabulary, and so start weeding it out, and catch yourself when you do it. But the other piece, the other words, the other common cuss words that people use all the time, that we consider in our culture cuss words, like the F word or the S word or whatever. Those are, in my mind, lesser offenses on a great degree. Sometimes we might sound less intelligent if we're using those words. I think it would be wildly inappropriate for me to use those words, but it might not be wildly inappropriate for someone else to use those words. But I don't think it sounds particularly smart. Some people use a certain word for emphasis. They think using that cuss word kind of gives a thought emphasis or something like that. I don't like that. I mean, I don't think I need that. If that's the way you want to speak, that's another thing. But be cautious, because people do they think something about you by the language you use. But for me, yeah, I'm just going to avoid to the best of my ability. Is saying cheese and rice bad? No, I don't think so. Probably not. Is that taking the Lord's name in vain? I don't think so. I think what you said earlier, what's the intent behind it? I don't think when someone hits their finger and says Jesus Christ, is the intent to curse the Son of God? I don't think so. But we should be really cautious when we're using the name of the Lord. We should love the Lord too much to use His name in vain like that. Yeah, I don't know.
It's a tough topic. It is easier to remove that, and I think probably one of the biggest takeaways from the particular sermon that you gave was our words have weight and meaning. And I think how many was it, like 1,600 words we say a day?
Yeah, that's what research shows, or Google research shows, that the average American says 16,000 words. 16,000 words a day. That's a lot of words.
And they mean something. And so we should probably be cognizant of what words we're using.
Yeah.
Yes, you can use a curse word for emphasis, but you're also going to lose a lot of people in that process too. You may suck a couple people back into what you're talking about, but then everything you say after that, for a lot of people, oh, did you hear what he said? And they're going to stop paying attention to the rest of what you said.
Yeah.
Or you could be using it to hurt someone. And that's probably the bigger takeaway is, of those words that you use throughout the day, make sure you're lifting people up, you're filling them up, and not tearing them down.
Well, that, and sometimes the words we speak, they land differently on different ears. And so one person, we all process somebody's talking to you, you process it differently than I do, because you're hearing it through your own filter and your own history and everything else. And so, I think I'm going to give one person's words a lot more weight than another person's words. And I don't know always who's going to give my words weight, and I can't control that. But one thing I can do is just choose my language with caution. Just be careful. If you're if you're in a pattern of cussing, and I think it's hard. I think I've heard people say, "Yeah, I'm trying to stop. I'm trying to stop swearing," and that's not been something that I ever started, because I would have gotten I got my ears boxed or something like that when I was a kid. But so I never really got into the habit of cussing. But I think it's hard to stop. At least that's what I've heard. What do you think?
I think it's very hard. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, you look at it, this is years and years and years of using certain words in certain circumstances. And anytime that you have that kind of repetition, those habits are hard to break. I mean, a lot of what we say is probably not subconscious. Like this is just how we speak, and this is how we do that. And in you trying to make that change is not easy, because then you have to consciously analyze every word that is coming out of your mouth. And I don't know that we do that. There's just a lot of built-in habits.
Yeah. And the other thing is, sometimes our words come out fast, like they're the response, and typically that's what a cuss is. It's just a part of your language that is right on the edge, and you just say it real quick, because that's, just like one person may say darn, another person might say damn. Yeah, and is that really a cuss word? I don't even, where does that word fall in the category? In my mind, it probably is. So I don't use that word unless I'm talking theological or something. But those words are really close. The reason I think they're hard to break the habit from is because, it's a pattern, and that's the word that just comes to mind. It doesn't even come to mind. It just comes out. Maybe it just comes off the tongue.
Like more reactionary.
Yeah. So learning new words that you're going to say, well, if you're learning new words just to replace the old words, I think maybe your question was earlier, aren't they all the same anyway then at that point?
Yeah. I mean, I had some person that was always like, well, you're not supposed to cuss. And they were pretty strict on it, but yet they would use frickin' or gosh darn it, or, right. And they're replacement words. It's almost like it's a different translation of the same word, but it rolls off the tongue a little nicer, I guess. Yeah. So, because even then you're replacing it with the same, I don't know. To me, it always seemed the same. I always thought that was kind of silly. Like,
true.
So
you want to hear something funny? So I'm a pastor, and when people cuss around me, they always turn to me and say, "Oh, excuse me," which I think is kind of funny, because, honestly, it doesn't really bother me when people use the language that they're going to use. That's just their language. And so I don't feel like they have to turn to me and apologize. But at the same time, I can't control, or really do I care to control someone else's language, but I can control mine. And I think that's the big thing, because,
you're leading by example.
Well,
right. I mean, like if you're, I just think by your actions and how you do things can show people a different way.
I don't even know that I really want to talk about my language whenever I get mad or something. What do I say? I probably say stuff that somebody else might think is bad, but it's not. I don't think I say bad things. But it's funny. Sometimes I can use a word today that might be interpreted in a very bad light, because words change. So.
Really grateful that you risk talking with me once a week. So
join us next week when we see what comes out. Right.
All right. I look forward to it.